"Ma'am, this is first class, not a street corner," the flight attendant said, her smile tight as the teenager lifted her boarding pass. I'm in seat 1A, the girl stammered, clutching her frayed denim jacket. A quiet chuckle rolled from the galley. Another crew member whispered, "She must have snuck up from economy." The girl's fingers trembled around her ticket. Around her, passengers shifted in their plush seats, pretending not to look. Outside the plane window, the Texas sun glared off the tarmac, white and merciless. Her name was Tiana Brooks, 17, heading to New York for a youth science conference she'd saved all summer to attend. She'd dressed neatly, pressed jeans, pale yellow blouse, but it wasn't enough for the polished perfection around her. "Please, I really do have the right seat," she whispered again. The attendant sighed, took the ticket and rolled her eyes toward a pilot lingering by the door. From behind, someone muttered, "Should have known by the jacket." Tiana's throat tightened. The denim jacket wasn't just old, it was her late father's. Then came the click of high heels on the boarding ramp. Heads turned as a woman in a dove-gray suit entered the cabin, her presence commanding, her voice low but sharp. "Is there a problem with my daughter's seat?" The laughter stopped. The crew froze, and just like that, everything changed. "Enjoying this? Tap subscribe for tomorrow's story." The woman's voice carried calm authority, the kind that silences a room without raising in pitch. "Mrs. Brooks," the captain murmured, straightening. "We weren't expecting—" "I'm sure you weren't," Evelyn Brooks replied, her eyes cool as she took in the scene. Her daughter standing small, the attendant stiff with guilt. Passengers pretending to read magazines that had been closed for minutes. Evelyn's heels clicked once more on the cabin floor. "You questioned my daughter's boarding pass." The lead flight attendant, a woman named Carol, forced a thin smile. "Just a mix-up, ma'am. Sometimes we have seat confusion when minors travel alone." Tiana sank into her seat, cheeks burning. "Mom, it's fine," she whispered. Evelyn shook her head, her diamond bracelet glinting under the cabin lights. "It's not fine. You made her feel like she didn't belong here." Carol swallowed hard. "Mrs. Brooks, we truly apologize." "We didn't realize what?" Evelyn asked softly. "That she had a right to this seat, or that people like her might buy one." The words hung heavy in the air. Someone coughed. The hum of the aircraft's AC seemed louder now, like a conscience that wouldn't quiet. Evelyn took a breath, then turned to Tiana. "Sweetheart, you okay?" Tiana nodded, blinking back tears. "Yeah, just ready to go." Her mother's hand rested gently on her shoulder, steady and protective. "Then let's go." The captain cleared his throat. "We'll depart shortly, Mrs. Brooks. Please make yourself comfortable." Evelyn's lips curved slightly. "I always do." As the plane began its slow taxi, Carol retreated to the galley, muttering to the junior attendant, "That's Evelyn Brooks?" "The investor?" The younger attendant frowned. "Investor? Like stocks?" Carol shook her head. "No, the Evelyn Brooks. Tech Holdings, Real Estate Foundations, Forbes cover last year. And that's her daughter?" Their whispers faded under the rising engine hum. Up front, Evelyn leaned toward Tiana. "You didn't tell me it was this bad," she said quietly. Tiana stared out the window. "It's fine, Mom, it happens. People see the jacket and they think wrong," Evelyn said, her tone sharp. "And they need to learn." A pause. Then softer. "That jacket, you still wear it everywhere." Tiana smiled faintly. "It still smells like Dad's cologne." "I guess it makes me brave." Her mother's expression softened, pride replacing anger. "Then never stop wearing it." Half an hour later, somewhere above the clouds, the seatbelt sign chimed off. Tiana opened her laptop to review her presentation slides. Renewable energy models for urban youth programs. Evelyn sipped sparkling water, watching quietly. "You made those yourself?" "Yeah, I'm presenting to the National Youth STEM Council tomorrow. First time outside Texas." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Your father would have loved that." For a moment, silence. The hum of the jet filled it, a gentle lull. Then Carol reappeared, all smiles. "Miss Brooks, would you or your daughter like a pre-meal refreshment? Champagne? Juice?" "Water's fine," Evelyn said without looking up. Tiana smiled politely. "Orange juice, please." Carol poured, her hand steady, voice careful now. "Of course, Miss Brooks." But as she turned away, Tiana noticed the faint roll of her eyes, the same gesture as before, softened but not gone. The teenager's stomach knotted. She typed the next line on her laptop. Prejudice hides best behind politeness. She didn't realize Evelyn had seen it, her mother's lips pressed together. Then, almost imperceptibly, she reached for her phone. A text flashed on the screen. DFW Gate Manager, call me after landing. In the cabin, the light dimmed for meal service. A man across the aisle leaned over. You're quite the young lady, he said kindly. Don't let small minds ruin your trip. Tiana smiled, surprised. Thank you, sir. Evelyn nodded slightly at him, gratitude in her eyes. But behind the curtain, Carol whispered again to her junior colleague. I didn't mean anything by it. How was I supposed to know? Maybe, the younger woman said softly. We're supposed to not assume. Carol's expression tightened, defensive. She looked like she didn't belong here. The younger attendant sighed. That's the point. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The plane shuddered gently as it began its climb through a patch of stormy air. In first class, Evelyn closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with resolve. Tiana, she said quietly, when we land, remind me to make a call. To who? You'll see, Evelyn replied, her gaze fixed ahead. Sometimes change doesn't start with shouting. It starts with documentation. The plane leveled, engine steady, storm fading. Tiana looked down at her father's jacket, tracing the faded stitching on the cuff. She didn't know it yet, but that jacket and what it represented would soon make national news. The flight had settled into that high-altitude hush, soft cabin lights, the hum of air vents and the faint clink of glasses from the galley. Outside, the clouds stretched endless and white, a silent ocean under the wings. Tiana leaned back, notebook open beside her juice glass. She tried to focus on her science notes, but her eyes kept drifting to the reflection in the window. Her mother, poised and unreadable, scrolling through her phone. Every so often, Evelyn's thumb stopped mid-scroll. She was writing something, notes maybe, but Tiana knew that look. Her mother wasn't taking notes. She was building a plan. Carol passed again, balancing a tray of desserts. Would you like anything else, Mrs. Brooks? Evelyn smiled faintly. No, thank you. Just coffee black. The attendant hesitated. Of course. She placed the cup carefully, her voice lighter now, but her eyes didn't meet Tiana's. As Carol turned, Tiana caught the quick whisper to another attendant. She's calm now. Thank God, calm. As though Evelyn's presence was something to survive, Tiana's jaw tightened. She wanted to say something, to defend her mother herself, but Evelyn's calm was her armor. And Tiana knew better than to break it mid-flight. Across the aisle, the same kind-eyed man from before adjusted his tie. Your mom's quite composed, he said quietly. Not everyone can keep that grace when they're disrespected, Tiana smiled shyly. She says it's easier to build bridges when you don't start fires. He chuckled. Wise woman. Then, with a glance at her laptop, you must be proud. Tiana hesitated. I am, but sometimes it's heavy, you know. Everyone sees her success. Not the weight she carries to stay polite through it. The man nodded slowly. That strength most people don't understand until they need it. The intercom chimed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We'll be cruising at 37,000 feet. Expect mild turbulence over Tennessee. Evelyn's eyes flicked to her daughter. Seatbelt, sweetheart. The seatbelt clicked, an ordinary sound, but grounding. Outside, the plane trembled once, then steadied. Carol reappeared overly cheerful now. Coffee freshened, Mrs. Brooks? Evelyn looked up. You've done enough, thank you. Carol's lips twitched. Of course. She disappeared behind the curtain again. Tiana turned slightly. Mom, she's just doing her job. Evelyn sighed softly. A job doesn't excuse tone. You'll learn that when you're managing people. Tiana frowned. But maybe she didn't mean. Evelyn's look was gentle but firm. Intentions are invisible. Actions are the only evidence the world sees. 15 minutes later, Evelyn stood and walked toward the lavatory. As she passed the galley, she paused. Carol was laughing softly with another attendant, unaware she was near, and the kid's jacket looked like it came out of a thrift bin. Who wears that in first class? Evelyn froze. The words hit colder than she expected. Not for herself, but for Tiana. Then she stepped forward, calm as ever. Excuse me, she said. Both attendants stiffened. Carol's face drained of color. Oh, Mrs. Brooks, we were just discussing my daughter's jacket. Carol swallowed hard. It was just small talk. Evelyn tilted her head. You might want to choose another topic. Small talk shouldn't make people smaller. Then she walked on, leaving silence in her wake. Back at her seat, Tiana looked up. Everything okay? Her mother nodded, smoothing her blouse. Perfectly. But when she sat, she exhaled slowly, tension hidden in her posture. She took out her phone again, opened notes, and began typing, DFW Flight 2614 Incident Report, Crew Bias. Evidence, witness present, comments recorded. Then she tapped the voice memo icon, setting the phone discreetly on her tray. Across the aisle, the kind-eyed man noticed, his expression sharpening. Recording, he mouthed. Evelyn gave the faintest nod. He smiled faintly. Good. Accountability flies faster when you document it. The turbulence began again, gentle but rhythmic, like a slow heartbeat. Tiana leaned back, jacket pulled tight around her. Her mother reached over and squeezed her hand. You okay? Tiana nodded, her voice small. Yeah, just tired. Rest then. Tomorrow's big. Tiana smiled weakly, eyes heavy. As she drifted off, the hum of engines merged with the soft click of Evelyn's bracelet against her phone, an accidental rhythm that would soon echo far beyond this cabin. Behind the curtain, Carol's nervous whisper broke the quiet again. Do you think she heard me? She definitely heard you, the junior attendant replied. And from that moment, fear replaced laughter. The flight entered a still patch of sky somewhere over Tennessee. The clouds had parted. Thin sunlight streaked across the cabin like slow-moving gold. Most passengers slept. Only the hum of the engines filled the air. Evelyn Brooks didn't sleep. Her mind was cataloguing. Every look, every word, every detail. The way Carol had whispered. The smirk from the galley. The passengers who looked away. Her phone rested quietly in her lap, still recording. Across the aisle, the kind-eyed man set down his coffee. Mrs. Brooks, he said in a low voice, do you mind if I introduce myself properly? Evelyn turned. His tone wasn't intrusive, just deliberate. I'm Charles Bennett, he said, civil rights attorney. I've worked a few cases. Like this one. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. I see. He nodded toward the galley curtain. People think what happens up here stays up here. It doesn't. Evelyn studied him. Were you recording too? He smiled faintly. Habit of mine. Not for drama, just protection. I've watched too many quiet moments turn into lessons no one wanted to learn. She exhaled softly. Then we're both witnesses. In seat 1A, Tiana stirred, blinking awake. The clouds below shimmered, endless. She saw her mother speaking with the man, their heads close together, serious but calm. She tugged the cuff of her jacket and whispered to herself, Dad would have told me to breathe. Her father, a high school physics teacher, had died 3 years earlier. He used to tell her, courage isn't loud, it's steady. She straightened her posture, mirroring her mother's quiet resolve. A chime rang. The captain's voice returned. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been cleared to land in New York in about 45 minutes. We appreciate your patience. The air shifted. Passengers stirred, stretching, conversations returning in murmurs. Carol emerged again, all polite composure. Mrs. Brooks, Miss Brooks, she began, the captain asked me to ensure your comfort for the remainder of the flight. Complimentary service on behalf of the airline. Evelyn didn't look up. I'd prefer respect over freebies. Carol froze. Of course. We sincerely apologize for any... Evelyn raised her eyes. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to my daughter. The attendant turned, hesitating. Tiana looked down, embarrassed. Carol leaned slightly closer. Miss Brooks, I'm sorry if... Evelyn cut in gently. Carol's mouth tightened. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. Evelyn folded her hands. No misunderstanding occurred, Miss Carol. Just a misjudgment. The attendant flushed, muttered something polite, and walked away quickly. Across the aisle, Charles Bennett watched, quiet admiration in his expression. You don't raise your voice, he said softly. You raise the standard. Evelyn gave a small smile. Rage burns fast. Dignity lasts longer. Later, as the plane began its descent, Charles leaned across. When we land, Mrs. Brooks, I can connect you with someone at the Department of Transportation's Ethics Office. I've handled passenger discrimination filings before. Evelyn shook her head gently. I won't start there. No? She closed her laptop, the recording saved. No, I'll start with the airline itself, quietly. Then if they don't listen, publicly. Charles nodded slowly. You're good at this. I have to be. When you build something big, you learn. Systems don't change from outside noise. They change from inside evidence. She looked at her daughter. That's the lesson she'll remember. As the plane lowered through clouds, the turbulence returned, brief but sharp. Tiana reached for her mother's hand. It's okay, Evelyn murmured. Just air pressure. Feels worse than that, Tiana whispered. Evelyn smiled softly. Everything feels worse right before you land. The plane broke through the grey city lights appearing below, like scattered stars. When the wheels touched down, the cabin broke into polite applause. Charles stood, reaching for his briefcase. Mrs. Brooks, he said quietly, I meant what I said. If you need a witness, I'm here. Evelyn extended her hand. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. He shook it firmly. I hope you use that recording wisely. She smiled faintly. I usually do. As he walked toward the exit, she noticed the small pin on his lapel, an old silver scale of justice. It gleamed once under the cabin light, before he disappeared down the aisle. The door opened. Warm New York air rushed in, carrying the scent of jet fuel and rain. Evelyn waited as Tiana collected her backpack. Ready? Tiana nodded. For the conference? Evelyn smiled. For everything. They stepped into the jet bridge together. Behind them, Carol stood frozen at the door, her practiced smile gone, replaced by the pale awareness that this moment might not stay private. Evelyn didn't look back, but she knew what was coming. By the time they reached the terminal, her phone buzzed. A notification appeared, recording saved. Flight 2614, duration 2 hours 18 minutes. She slipped the phone into her bag, the denim jacket brushing her arm as if sealing a promise. The arrivals terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth was always loud, rollers clattering, voices echoing, phones chiming, but that evening, it felt strangely quiet to Evelyn Brooks. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she led Tiana toward the glass doors where sunlight faded into Texas dusk. The girl clutched her backpack and her father's denim jacket, its fabric worn soft from years of use. Mom, she said, do you really have to report it? It's over now. Evelyn stopped walking. Sweetheart, if I don't, they'll do it again, to someone who doesn't have a voice. Tiana frowned. But people will say you're just using your power. Evelyn smiled gently. That's the point of power, Tiana, to use it for someone else. The next morning she was back at DFW, this time in a glass-walled executive office marked Customer Affairs and Compliance. A manager named Gregory Hale met her at the door, all handshakes and forced courtesy. Mrs. Brooks, thank you for coming. I understand there was a misunderstanding aboard Flight 2614. Evelyn placed her phone on the table. Not a misunderstanding, Mr. Hale, a pattern. He blinked. Pattern? She tapped the phone once. The screen lit up with the voice memo file. You might want to listen before you call it something else. He hesitated. May I ask if this recording was obtained with consent? Evelyn's voice stayed calm. Your staff made the comments in a public work setting. They were not private. She pressed play. The room filled with Carol's voice. The kid's jacket looked like it came out of a thrift bin. Who wears that in first class? Gregory's face stiffened. Evelyn stopped the playback. I'm not here for compensation. I'm here for accountability. He cleared his throat. We take this very seriously. Of course, we'll launch an internal review. Evelyn leaned forward slightly. Internal reviews are quiet. I don't want quiet. I want change. Gregory nodded awkwardly, scribbling notes. Understood. Her eyes softened. And I want the apology to come from the right person. To my daughter. He looked up. Publicly. Formally, she replied. You choose the setting. But she deserves dignity in the same place it was taken from her, in front of others. Gregory nodded slowly. We can arrange that. Outside the office, Evelyn found Tiana sitting on a bench typing on her laptop. How'd it go? Tiana asked. Evelyn smiled faintly. The wheels are turning. Her daughter raised an eyebrow. Fast or slow? Evelyn chuckled. As always, slower than justice and faster than denial. They both laughed softly. Then Tiana asked, Do you think that woman, Carol, will lose her job? Evelyn hesitated. I don't want her punished, honey. I want her educated. Tiana tilted her head. Educated? Yes, the kind of lesson you don't forget because it changes how you see people. 3 days later, Evelyn received an email from the airline, Subject Flight 26 One-Tune Follow-Up. Acknowledgement and Resolution Body. Mrs. Brooks, thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. We are scheduling a formal in-person acknowledgement between our staff and your family before your next trip. We would appreciate your participation. Below the signature was a small line that caught her eye. Corporate Oversight Representative Charles Bennett, espouse. Evelyn smiled. The passenger who knew. A week later they met again. Same airport, different gate. This time a small crowd gathered near a lounge window overlooking the runway. Carol stood there, hands clasped, visibly nervous. Her junior colleague stood beside her, eyes down. Evelyn and Tiana approached slowly. Gregory Hale was present, and beside him Charles Bennett, now in a suit and carrying a folder. Mrs. Brooks, Gregory said, thank you for agreeing to meet. Evelyn nodded. I appreciate the effort. He turned to Carol. Ms. Hughes, you have something to say. Carol's voice trembled. Miss Brooks, I want to apologize. What I said on that flight was thoughtless and hurtful. It wasn't just unprofessional, it was wrong. I can't undo it, but I can promise it won't happen again. Tiana looked at her mother, uncertain. Evelyn's nod was gentle. Thank you, Tiana said quietly. I forgive you. Carol blinked, startled. You do? Tiana smiled faintly. My dad used to say you can't teach kindness by being cruel. For a moment the tension eased. The light from the window caught the denim jacket's sleeve, its frayed cuff almost glowing. Charles stepped forward. Mrs. Brooks, with your permission, we'd like to integrate this case into the airline's training program. Real examples have more power than policy memos. Evelyn's eyes softened. Only if my daughter's name stays private. Of course, he said. But her courage won't. They shook hands. Outside, another plane lifted off into the blue, its engines roaring, a sound that somehow felt like progress. Tiana watched, eyes bright. Mom, do you think people really change? Evelyn looked at her daughter, then at the sky. Not easily. But sometimes they do, when they finally see who's been sitting beside them all along. 2 weeks after the apology, Evelyn Brooks thought the story had ended. She was wrong. It started with a quiet ping at breakfast. Tiana's phone lit up on the kitchen table, screen glowing beside her half-finished cereal. Mom, she said, frowning, someone just tagged me in a video from the flight. Evelyn looked up from her tablet. Video? Tiana turned the screen. There it was, grainy but clear. Evelyn standing in the aisle, calm and composed, saying, Small talk shouldn't make people smaller. Someone had filmed the moment through a seat gap. The caption read, When a mom teaches grace at 37,000 feet. Below it, the counter spun fast, 83,000 views. Got into 12,000. 340,000 by noon it had crossed 1 million. Local outlets picked it up. By evening, national headlines followed. Billionaire investor defends daughter from flight bias without raising her voice. Clips played on morning shows. Commentators called it a masterclass in quiet strength. Evelyn hadn't spoken publicly, but her silence only made people lean closer. The denim jacket became the story's symbol. Viewers posted photos of their own courage clothes, garments that reminded them of family, faith or survival. On one clip, a caption read Seat 1A, because dignity flies first. That night, Tiana scrolled through hundreds of comments, some angry, most moved. Mom, she whispered, people are saying you changed how they see first class. Evelyn smiled softly. If a camera caught kindness, then maybe that's good, but we didn't post it, Tiana said. Who did? Her mother frowned. Find the original account. Tiana clicked the username. A truth on board. Profile blank, no photo, one upload. Anonymous, she murmured. Evelyn looked away, thoughtful. Sometimes witnesses stay silent until they see silence hurts. The next morning, Charles Bennett called. Evelyn, he said, I assume you've seen the video. Yes, unexpected publicity, he chuckled. Unexpected but powerful. The airline issued a statement within hours. New diversity training, revised passenger treatment policies, and a scholarship fund for underrepresented youth in aviation. They named it after you. Evelyn blinked. They didn't ask my permission. They didn't have to. They needed the goodwill, she sighed. I didn't want fame. I know, Charles replied. But the thing about Grace, people remember it, especially when it's filmed. By noon, reporters called non-stop. Tiana hid in her room, overwhelmed. Evelyn answered none. Then her phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. A text appeared. I was the one who filmed it. I'm a flight attendant on probation. I wanted people to see what real leadership looks like. Please don't expose me. Evelyn read it twice, then typed back, your secret's safe. You already did the hard part, telling the truth. She set the phone down, looking out her office window. Dallas stretched below, the city glittering with possibility and contradiction. That evening, mother and daughter sat on the porch, warm wind brushing their faces. Tiana asked quietly, "Are you mad the world saw it?" Evelyn shook her head. "No. I'm just reminded that cameras catch what hearts should already notice." She reached over, touching the sleeve of the denim jacket, resting across Tiana's knees. "Your father used to say we're all teachers," Evelyn murmured. "Some of us just get bigger classrooms than we planned." Tiana smiled. "Then today yours had a few million students." Evelyn laughed softly. "Then let's make the lesson count." She stood, went inside, and opened her laptop. On the Airline scholarship announcement page, a single line of text appeared under the new program name, the Evelyn Brooks Initiative for Dignity in Service. And below it, a contact link. Evelyn began typing an email to offer matching funds from her own foundation. Outside, the Texas night hummed with cicadas, steady as an engine. Far away, another phone pinged, Charles Bennett's. He smiled at the headline flashing across his screen, "Quiet Power, the woman who turned humiliation into reform." He whispered to himself, "You did it, Evelyn." By the end of the week, the video had crossed 10 million views. Morning shows called it the flight that changed first class. But to Evelyn Brooks, it was still personal. A moment between her daughter, a jacket, and a lesson. Then came the email that changed everything. Subject, "I need to tell you who I am from. truthonboardaprivate.com." Evelyn hesitated before opening it. Inside was a short message. "Mrs. Brooks, I was the one who filmed your interaction. I'm not an attendant. My name is Samuel Porter. I was seated 2 rows back. I'm also the regional training director for SkyWest Alliance Airlines. Your grace made me realize what our policies miss. I want to meet, in person if you'll allow it." Evelyn sat still, reading it twice. "A witness, yes, but a powerful one." 2 days later, they met in a quiet Dallas cafe overlooking the runway. Planes rose and descended behind the glass like breathing. Samuel was younger than she expected, mid-30s, tidy, tired eyes. He stood as she entered. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, shaking her hand. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for telling the truth," she replied. "That's rarer than it should be." He smiled faintly. "I didn't at first. I was scared to post the video. But I watched it again and realized your calm wasn't just composure. It was leadership. And that's what we've failed to teach." Evelyn studied him carefully. "What do you want to do with this?" He took out a folder. Inside were draft training materials titled Dignity in Service Case Study, Flight 2612. "We're rewriting the National Customer Relations Program," Samuel said. "And we want you to help design it." Evelyn's eyes widened. "You're serious?" He nodded. "Completely. Our executives approved it after the story went viral. They said if you'd agree, it would be a partnership. Real reform, not PR." For a moment, Evelyn was silent. Through the cafe window, a plane thundered into the sky. Finally, she said softly, "I'll do it. But I want my daughter involved too." "This started with her." Samuel smiled. "Done." He slid a document across the table, a draft agreement with her foundation's name already listed. Then he said almost shyly, "There's one more thing." He pulled a small object from his pocket, a crew badge, Carol's. "She mailed it to me," he said. "With a note." He handed it over. Evelyn unfolded the small slip of paper. "Mrs. Brooks, I resigned. Not because I was fired, but because I realized I need to relearn what kindness means. I'm enrolling in community college to study social work. Thank you for making me see myself." Carol Evelyn's eyes softened. "That's the kind of consequence the world needs more of." Samuel nodded. "You didn't humiliate her. You transformed her." That evening, Evelyn told Tiana everything. Her daughter listened wide-eyed. "So the man who filmed it wasn't crew?" "No," Evelyn said gently. "He was someone who could make change from the inside." Tiana smiled slowly. "Then maybe Dad was right." "About what?" "That courage travels faster than anger." Evelyn reached over, brushing a stray curl from her daughter's face. "And lasts longer." A few weeks later, a news article circulated quietly online. No sensational headline, just a thoughtful profile. Behind the viral flight, how quiet leadership built new industry standards. The photo showed Evelyn and Tiana visiting a training seminar for new flight attendants. Tiana, wearing her father's denim jacket, stood in front of a projector, explaining empathy scenarios to a room of recruits. Samuel stood beside her, smiling proudly. When one trainee asked, "What's the hardest part about confronting bias?" Tiana answered without hesitation, "Believing people can change and giving them the chance to prove it." The room fell silent, then filled with applause. Outside, Evelyn watched from the doorway, eyes glistening. She whispered to herself, "He'd be proud of you, sweetheart." 3 months later, the story that began with a laugh in first class had reached boardrooms across America. Trade journals called it the Brooks effect, airline executives whispered. The phrase like a weather forecast, something you couldn't ignore even if you wanted to. At a regional transportation summit in Washington, D.C., Evelyn Brooks stood backstage in a navy blazer, reviewing her notes. The program listed her segment as Ethics in Elevation Restoring Humanity in Air Travel. Beside her, Samuel Porter adjusted his tie. "You've started something that's already bigger than us," he said quietly. Evelyn smiled faintly. "Good. It means it might last." Out in the ballroom, the air buzzed with camera clicks and murmurs. Representatives from multiple airlines sat shoulder to shoulder with union delegates and civil rights advocates. When Evelyn walked onto the stage, the room fell silent. 3 months ago, she began, "My daughter boarded a flight to New York, wearing her late father's denim jacket. Sam saw that jacket and decided she didn't belong. But what happened next proved that dignity doesn't need a uniform. It needs courage." A ripple of quiet agreement passed through the audience. She continued, steady and measured. "We can't train away bias with a slideshow. But we can remind every worker that their smallest action might be someone else's biggest humiliation or someone's redemption." Behind her, the screen displayed a still frame from the viral video. Evelyn standing calmly in the aisle, Tiana's face half visible beside her. "The video wasn't the point," she said. "The lesson was." Applause built slowly, then grew until it filled the hall. Afterward, journalists gathered near the exit. "Mrs. Brooks, how does it feel to become a symbol for change?" one asked. Evelyn smiled politely. "Symbols fade. Systems don't, if we build them right." Another reporter called out, "Do you think the airlines have learned their lesson?" She paused. "Learning is a process. Accountability is the test." Meanwhile, at SkyWest Alliance headquarters, executives reviewed quarterly data. Customer satisfaction scores had risen 11%. Employee retention improved. Training attendance doubled. A memo circulated internally. The Evelyn Brooks initiative has demonstrated measurable improvement in passenger relations and staff morale. Recommendation: adopt as mandatory industry standard within 12 months. The news spread quickly. Regional carriers began requesting partnership sessions. Airport staff in Denver, Phoenix, and Atlanta held group screenings of the Flight 2614 clip as part of onboarding. The denim jacket, once mocked, appeared in corporate training slides titled Visible Respect. At home in Dallas, Tiana scrolled through social media. A post caught her eye. "Today I wore my grandmother's apron to work. Because dignity doesn't mean dressing up. It means showing up." #Seatway. She smiled. "Mom, look at this." Evelyn glanced over, reading the post. "You see? People remember the heart, not the headlines." Tiana grinned. "And it's trending again." Evelyn chuckled softly. "Then let's make sure it trends for the right reason." That evening, her phone rang. It was Charles Bennett. "I just got off a call with the Department of Transportation," he said. "They want to meet with you about codifying parts of your program into the federal passenger guidelines." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "You're joking." "I'm not," he said. "They cited your case as a model for ethical response to discrimination in service environments." She exhaled slowly. "That's bigger than I planned." "That's what happens," Charles said, "when one person refuses to let a small injustice stay small." Later that night, Evelyn walked out onto her balcony. The Dallas skyline shimmered in the distance. Below, the hum of traffic blended with the faint roar of planes overhead, departures, arrivals, endless motion. She thought of Carol, somewhere rebuilding her life. Of Samuel, reworking manuals that would reach thousands. Of her daughter, preparing her next science talk about renewable energy and renewable hope. Evelyn whispered to the night, "You can't legislate kindness, but you can light a path to it." Behind her, Tiana's voice drifted from inside. "Mom, you coming in? The news is showing your speech." Evelyn smiled to herself. "I've already seen it," she murmured. The city lights flickered like stars reflected on glass. 6 months had passed since Flight 2614. The headlines had faded, but their ripple remained quiet, steady, like wind beneath the wings of something larger than a single story. Evelyn Brooks sat alone in her Dallas office one evening, reviewing the final draft of the Dignity and Service Manual. Her foundation's logo now appeared beside the Airline's, a handshake rendered in silver ink. Her assistant had gone home hours ago. Outside, dusk painted the skyline in warm oranges and deep blue shadows. The silence reminded her of her husband, how he used to hum when reading reports late at night. She still caught herself waiting for that sound. On her desk sat his photo, smiling, proud, holding baby Tiana, and beside it, the folded denim jacket. She reached out, smoothing its sleeve. "We did it, Marcus," she whispered. "She's safe. She's strong." A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Tiana peeked in. "Mom? You're still here." "Almost done," Evelyn said. "Come sit." The girl stepped in, taller now, surer. Her posture carried quiet confidence, the same calm her mother once had to teach her. "Guess what?" Tiana said, sitting across from her. "They accepted my paper for the National Youth Energy Summit. I get to present in D.C. next spring." Evelyn's face brightened. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." "What's the topic?" "Renewable hope," Tiana said shyly. "I mean renewable energy. But it's about how science can restore what people lose faith in." Her mother smiled. "Spoken like your father," Tiana laughed. "And written like you." The office lights dimmed automatically, motion sensors ticking off one by one. Evelyn leaned back, exhaling. "You know, Tiana," she said quietly, "when that day happened on the plane, I thought I was just protecting you. I didn't realize it would protect so many others too." Tiana traced a finger along the edge of the jacket. "You didn't shout. You didn't post about it. You just acted right. That's what everyone keeps saying." Evelyn chuckled. "Acting right is harder than sounding right." She looked out the window. "But maybe that's what this country needs more of. People doing the quiet, steady things until the loud ones start listening." The phone on her desk buzzed. A message preview glowed on the screen. "Congratulations, Mrs. Brooks. The FAA has approved inclusion of your training modules for national rollout." Evelyn stared at it for a long moment, then turned the screen toward her daughter. Tiana gasped. "You're kidding. That's national policy." "Mom, that's huge." Evelyn smiled softly. "It's just policy until people practice it. But yes, this means change can outlive us." Tiana leaned forward, hugging her. "I'm proud of you." Her mother's voice caught slightly. "I'm proud of you. You never let shame shrink you. You held your seat." They stayed that way for a long moment, the city lights flickering below them like embers that refused to die out. Later, as they walked out of the building, the warm night air wrapped around them. The parking lot was nearly empty, the hum of nearby traffic distant but constant. Tiana glanced up at the stars. "Do you ever wish the flight never happened?" Evelyn thought for a moment. "I wish it hadn't hurt you. But sometimes life hands us turbulence we didn't plan for, to teach us how steady we can be." Tiana smiled faintly. "Dad would have said that." "I learned it from him," Evelyn said softly. They reached the car. Tiana folded the denim jacket carefully, placing it in the back seat. "Why not wear it anymore?" Evelyn asked gently. Tiana looked up. "Because it's done its job. Now it's time to keep it safe." Her mother nodded. "Then maybe next time wear something new for who you're becoming." Tiana grinned. "Deal." As they drove away, the city's lights shimmered on the horizon, like a runway stretching toward tomorrow. The morning sun poured through the high windows of the Smithsonian Aviation Hall in Washington. D.C. rows of students, parents, and mentors filled the grand room. Banners reading, "National Youth Energy and Innovation Summit," sponsored by the Evelyn Brooks Foundation. Cameras clicked. Reporters whispered. Yet in the front row, Evelyn Brooks wasn't thinking about headlines. She was watching her daughter take the stage. Tiana stood tall at the podium, her voice steady over the microphone. "My project," she said, "is called Renewable Hope. It's about how energy, like people, can be restored when we invest in it." A soft murmur of admiration moved through the audience. Evelyn smiled quietly, pride glowing in her eyes. Tiana continued, "6 months ago, I learned something about energy that doesn't come from wind or sun. It comes from dignity, how one moment of it can power change far beyond what you see." Her gaze found her mother's. They shared a brief, silent smile, the kind that carries 1,000 unsaid memories. When the applause faded, an announcer stepped forward. "Please welcome Mrs. Evelyn Brooks for a brief closing address." Evelyn rose, walking to the podium as the audience clapped. The weight of the moment felt light compared to the gravity of the journey. "Good morning," she began. "When I was your age, I thought power was about titles and money. I was wrong. Power is how you make people feel safe in your presence." She paused, scanning the crowd of young faces. "My daughter reminded me that the smallest act of grace can outlast the loudest act of anger." Someone in the crowd raised a phone to record. Evelyn smiled knowingly. She'd stopped fearing cameras long ago. She reached into her bag and held up an old folded denim jacket. The audience hushed. "This belonged to my husband," she said softly. "My daughter wore it on a flight that changed our lives. It taught us both that respect isn't granted by what you wear. It's proven by how you treat others." She placed the jacket gently on the podium. "This will be displayed here in the Smithsonian, not because it's famous, but because it reminds us what still needs to fly higher, our humanity." Applause thundered through the hall, rising, rolling, filling every corner of the vast room. After the ceremony, a journalist approached. "Mrs. Brooks, what's next for the foundation?" Evelyn smiled. "We're launching a scholarship for youth entering service professions, pilots, attendants, first responders, people who keep others safe in the air and on the ground." "Will it be called the Brooks Scholarship?" the reporter asked. She shook her head. "No, it'll be named after someone who learned and changed, the Carol Hughes Fellowship, because grace isn't just given. It's grown." The journalist's eyebrows lifted, impressed. "That's poetic," Evelyn smiled. "It's human." Later that afternoon, as the event cleared out, Evelyn walked alone through a quiet corridor lined with aviation artifacts, old propellers, stewardess uniforms, faded photos of early flights. Her footsteps echoed softly until she reached a display case still being assembled. Inside was the denim jacket, carefully mounted on linen backing, a small placard below it. The Brooks jacket, symbol of dignity, 2025, donated by Evelyn and Tiana Brooks, in honor of Marcus Brooks, 1969-2022. Evelyn stood there, hand pressed lightly to the glass. The hum of distant conversation faded until all she heard was the soft hum of the air conditioning. Steady, constant, familiar. A quiet tear slipped down her cheek, not of sadness but of release. Behind her, Tiana's voice called gently, "Mom." Evelyn turned. "Yes, sweetheart?" "They're ready for dinner," she smiled. "I'll be right there." Tiana looked at the display. "Think Dad would like it here?" Evelyn nodded, eyes glistening. "He'd love it. He'd say it finally found its altitude." As they walked out together, the evening light poured through the glass roof, painting gold stripes across the floor. A group of students passed, whispering in awe, "That's the real jacket." Evelyn glanced at her daughter. "You know, stories don't really end. They just keep flying on someone else's ticket." Tiana smiled, slipping her arm through her mother's. "Then let's make sure ours keeps boarding." They stepped into the fading sunlight, two figures silhouetted against a departing plane, the sound of its engines fading into peace. End. Thanks for watching.